As I finished putting away the last of my books, I looked out my bedroom window and saw the mountains in the distance. I sighed as I thought about the huge forest that stood between our new summer home and the rest of the world. At age 17, my shyness had turned into boredom as I drove through our hometown's twisting mountain roads. But this shack in the middle of nowhere held unknown horrors that went beyond being alone. Megan, my younger sister, was excited about going mushroom hunting and making new friends. But I had darker thoughts in these lonely woods. It was Mom calling from below. "Nora, dinner." I got myself together and went downstairs. The house was simple but warm, with a fireplace that crackled. While we ate, I kept looking at the black shapes that were moving across the windows. Dad said it was a busy day fixing the roof in the hot sun, but the dark circles under his eyes told him he had bigger problems. Mom talked about fun things we could do to pass the time, but her happiness didn't seem real. Megan was the only one who stayed positive, and she started making plans for early morning walks. Forced cheer covered up family unease, which made me slurp down my food. When I looked outside, I saw movement in the tree line. It was a pale figure watching from behind the trees. It was gone when I blinked. Dad looked into the dark and asked, "Nothing. Just tired, I think." I left early because I was scared. When I read in my attic bedroom, the light was getting dim, and the shadows moved across the knotted wood. I woke up when I heard a bang from downstairs. No one's steps could be heard as they climbed and then disappeared. I held my breath and listened for familiar sounds, but all I could hear were the trees and the cabin creaking. When it got really dark, with moonlight shining through thick branches, I felt very uneasy. A scary howl came from deep in the woods and sent chills down my spine. No matter how hard I tried to sleep, the call kept coming over and over in progressively louder tones. It joined other strange sounds that were floating through my open window on the cool breeze. When I woke up in the morning, I was tired and lost, and the family was already eating breakfast downstairs. Dad's eyes were dark, and Mom's hands were shaking so much that they spilled coffee. Only Megan, who is always happy, stayed the same. "Rough night," Dad said in a stern voice. "Heard things out there I can't explain." Mom gripped her coffee mug tighter. "I saw someone at the edge of the property yesterday, but they vanished so quickly." My heart stopped beating. I also thought I saw someone in the trees yesterday, even though we were eating. Megan laughed. "Most likely a deer. What a crazy story you're making up in these woods, Nora." But Dad's sad face made dismissals seem unlikely. As we ate in silence, each of us thinking about our own terrible dreams from the night before. When would being alone drive us crazy or something worse appear in the forest? I promised to find out the truth about our unwanted watcher, because our safety relied on facing creeping threats instead of denying they exist. That night, I went out on the back porch and took a deep breath of the pine-scented air, hoping that new ideas would calm my jitters. I could only see darker shadows. The tree line was like an impenetrable wall, and beyond the trees were already dark holes at dusk. There was a loud snap coming from inside. I walked slowly around the cabin, following the noise. When I saw the tools that were lying in the leaves along a path that led deeper into the dark forest, it took my breath away. Dad's hammer was lying at the edge of the trees. Paint cans were further away, and his saw was just inside the first ring of pines. I felt scared because an unseen hand seemed to pull me into the dark woods. I ran inside and slammed the door shut behind me. I watched the last rays of sun go down behind thick trees through the curtained window. The trees were still, but the pine boughs moved slowly, like they were in the wind. Pale eyes looked back at me from their branches. I felt a cold lump in my throat. We were being pushed into this stranger's territory like prey. That night, every creak and groan of settling wood woke me up from my erratic dreams. Outside, twigs scratched my window in jerky, irregular ways. With a torch as a lifeline, I slid out of my sweaty sheets and made my way downstairs to get water around midnight. In the dark kitchen, a shadow broke off from the storeroom. Megan's pale face was in the beam as I screamed and flailed my light. She put her finger to her shaking lips and motioned for me to join her by the back door, where she was holding a heavy skillet. A strange howl came from inside the trees, like demons in pain. We both shook as Megan gasped, and I squeezed her hand. The wail got louder, as if it were going around our double-pane windows and measuring how weak we were from the outside. Then, heavy footsteps shook the leaves off the trees as they went back into the woods. We stayed by the door and clung to it until the light of morning slowly came back. We both didn't dare close our eyes again that night. We kept a close eye on the doors and windows until dawn's wet rays didn't give us much comfort. At breakfast, no one talked about how scared we were, but our pale faces made it clear. Over the next few days, each night brought more and more strange things. Flickering shadows moving through windows, scratching claws, cutting into wood siding. Some tools went missing and then came back in strange places, like a hoe stuck in the roof of the tool shed or a shovel-sunk blade, down in soft ground like it was planting a hellish seed. In her nightmares, Nora was being chased through pitch black woods by a pale, gangly thing that looked familiar but was so horribly wrong. She woke up panting and scratching at her sheets. She felt like someone was watching her from behind. One night, our stressed-out mom broke down in tears and begged to leave this evil place. But more and more activity showed that escape would not be easy. Dad locked the doors and got out an old hunting gun, making plans for how to finally face this presence that was making us crazy by being alone. One night, I woke up alone from a series of bad dreams. I went downstairs to get some water, saw that the back door was slightly open. There were a lot of acorns and pine cones on the porch, covering the worn-out boards. There were also scuff marks that went out into the dark forest. My chest got hot and shaky with fear. One by one, we were taken away from the supposed safety of this falling apart haven. I threw open the door to disappear into the dark. As I ran into the Stygian trees, the weak beam of my flashlight scared away shadows. I couldn't tell whose path I was following because of the rotting leaves that crunched under my feet. Soon after, an unearthly howl grew louder and closer, changing pitch and volume so slowly, it was like it was trying my sanity. I ran wildly toward the scream, getting hit by branches. Megan was bound and gagged under twisted branches when my light broke into a small opening. Her eyes begged me to help her. Beyond, larger trees grew in an unnatural way, crowding in until there was only a narrow passageway left. Down, it shuffled a pale body with a head that hung down. Long, mottled fingers calling me to follow. No, I screamed, grabbed Megan's bound body and ran the other way. The path I picked, though, was blocked by branches that I couldn't get past, and that chilling call followed us around. Soon, we were going in circles, and with each ragged breath, our hope was dwindling. Finally, a huge tree trunk blocked our way out, and we gathered together, panting, while we waited for death to grab us in this strange asylum. Like setting. The night was broken by the sound of a gun. Heavy footsteps smashed into us as a huge figure rushed into view and wrapped its arms around us to protect us. Dad, as he half carried, half dragged us out of that scary place. I sobbed into his sweaty shirt. When we got back to the cabin, Mom rocked and prayed over our shaking bodies. At that point, I saw that Dad's torso was bleeding. 3 parallel cuts ran down his side, where claw-like claws had grabbed him. His gun was lying on the ground with 3 spent rounds inside. The horrible thing that was following us out of the woods was bleeding, but it didn't seem willing or able to be killed. Our heated argument turned into yelling. This threat that no one could understand put a lot of stress on family relationships. Megan screamed out in anger and confusion, saying that my delusions were putting us all in danger. Even though the roads were eerily shut Mom screamed for help. Still, something kept us locked inside the suffocating walls, scaring our weak spirits night after night. Finally, just before dawn, there was a huge impact that shook our shelter to its core. As we ran outside, we were shocked to see that our car, which had been parked safely days before, was now smashed against the tool shed in a horrible mess of broken glass and twisted metal. A message that couldn't be put into words was written along its damaged side. There is no escape. When dawn came up, we huddled inside, shaking, blocking every crack in the walls against the evil wants of whoever owned these wooded domains. But as the sun started to shine through the deepest shadows, our invisible attacker seemed to move away. At noon, its power was at its weakest. Dad said with a sad heart that the only way to save ourselves was to face this thing on its own terms, in the deepest parts of its domain. So, in the middle of the afternoon, the father and daughter went into the light-filled tunnel, ready for whatever terrors they might find there. We looked for signs of life in the forest for 2 hours, going back and forth on flat paths through whispering pines. There was more hope that facing our fears had removed some veil. But as the shadows got longer, a sharp scream broke that hope. We ran quickly toward the sound and came out into a small clearing with only one thing: Megan's torn nightgown stuck on some sharp sticks. Beyond, as far as the eye could see into the wild wood, an evil chorus rang out in a hellish uproar. We ran away from that evil place together, holding Dad's shaking hand. Our family ties were hurt, but not broken. Behind us, the forest looked like it was sighing, and its watchful guards were moving back into the shadows to be alone. Their true nature was just as mysterious as the quiet mountain's old secrets.